Hello, and welcome to the Wine Enthusiast Podcast, your serving of drinks culture and the people who drive it. I'm JC Tops. This is the second in our three-part series highlighting some of this year's Future 40 tastemakers. Wine Enthusiast has always aimed to center communities who've been traditionally left out of the wine conversation. Formerly the 40 Under 40, the Future 40 is composed of innovators, tastemakers, advocates, and those bringing the industry into the future. Which leads me to our guest this week, Martha Cisneros Paja, also known as the Wine Diva on social media. Martha is an influencer and educator who founded Latinas Wine Club, Inc. Martha sits down with our digital web producer, Sam Setti. This is Sam's first interview on the podcast, and I'm excited to say that you'll be hearing from Sam and her Gen Z perspective a lot more. So listen on as Martha explains how she got into the industry, why she started her blog, Wine Diva, and the Latinas Wine Club, the importance of representation and inclusivity within the community, and why learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortable is important in wine. And now a word from our sponsor. The Calling is a dream collection of California wines offering a distinct range of varietals, styles, and best-in-class appellations. Winemaker James McVall gives each wine a clear, singular voice, working with renowned family growers to craft Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Cabernet Sauvignon while collecting over 70 90-plus scores in the process. Join one of the Calling's fully customizable wine clubs for first access to new releases, special library vintages, and more. With 4 membership options, there's a club for every wine lover. Receive 3 shipments per year or try our monthly subscription, delivering 3 bottles a month straight to your door. For more information and access, visit us at thecallingwine.com/enthusiast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wine Enthusiast Podcast. My name is Samantha Setti, and I'm the digital web producer here at Wine Enthusiast. And today, I have the pleasure to speak with Martha Cisneros Paja, one of this year's Future 40 honorees. Every year, Wine Enthusiast recognizes a diverse set of tastemakers who are bringing the drinks business into the future. Among them are winemakers, educators, brewers, sommeliers, and all sorts of professionals who find unique ways to open doors and build bridges in the industry. Martha is a technology engineer in addition to being a jack of many trades in the wine industry. She is a D.O. Cava brand ambassador, writer, blogger, sherry specialist, entrepreneur, and founder of the Latinas Wine Club. Oh, and if you spent some time on social media, you might recognize her as Wine Diva. Clearly, we have a lot to talk about today. But before we dive in, Martha, do you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself? It's so great to have you here today, by the way.
Hey, Samantha, thank you very much for that introduction. Well, I think you said it all, but in my own words, I am a wine blogger, wine writer, author, founder of Latinas Wine Club, and it's such an honor to be part of this year honorees of Wine Enthusiast Future 40 Tastemakers list. It's really shining a light on diversity and people that is advocating for a cause. So it's such an honor to share this moment with so many people across the US that is really looking for that change, and the honorees that are also advocating for a very special cause, each in their own niche. So thank you, Samantha, again for having me. Such a special moment for me.
And congratulations. I mean, you said it so well, but it's a huge deal. You know, the wine industry, like all industries, there's change need to be done. And I'm sure there's so many people, including myself, who are so grateful for advocates like you. And I'd love to hear more about what you are advocating for. Like, who are you in wine? And what do you stand for?
Yes. So I have always had a passion for advocating for community. I think since I was little, I was always like trying to help, It's something that is within me, in my personality. However, since I got into wine, over a couple of years ago. I have several like aha moments, moments that inspire me to advocate for Latinas, particularly that were interested in learning about wine or that, like me, are early career professionals that wanted to incursionate into the wine industry, and we didn't see the door open. And so I was like, okay, I have to open the door and make it
Yes.
happen. So yes, I created Latinas Wine Club from there, but really it wasn't during the pandemic that I really like decided to make it happen. I decided to make that dream my reality. I saw myself and so many Latinas struggling to getting into, that we were losing jobs at that moment in the restaurant and hospitality industry during the pandemic. So many people is struggling and feeling disconnected that I saw that opportunity to connect online with others and share my passion for wine while advocating for the Latina community.
Yes. And so just to backtrack for a moment here, for our listeners who might not be as familiar, what is Latinas Wine Club?
Yes, of course. Latinas Wine Club, it's a technological platform, I'll say, and our mission is to educate, elevate, and empower through wine. It's been a challenging but a rewarding journey so far, but I am excited to help Latinas learn more about their wine choices and the career opportunities that they have in the wine industry.
Absolutely. And so, how do you facilitate those connections online? Because I'm sure, especially with something like wine, can't really serve glass through there. And it's very difficult to just bring people together. So, can you share a little bit more about what you do through the Latinas Wine Club to bring people together around wine?
Yes, of course. So the Beats and Bolts, we really started as an Instagram page, Samantha. It was simple
Oh,
as
wow.
that. As a wine diva, I already had some followers from all over the world. I mean, some followers, a couple of thousand, from all over the
You can
world.
flex. This is a safe space. We're allowed to.
Yes, from all over the world. But really, when I started Wine Diva, it was kind of like to share my wine journey. But Latinas Wine Club, I started the page with really focusing on a strategy and wanting to create content for Latinas. Content that speak to Latinas that wanted to learn about wine or certain wine regions or certain wine grapes or from the basics, like how am I going to drink wine? How am I going to pair this wine? So it was pretty basic. Also, I was featuring Latina wine professionals, sommeliers that were working in the industry, bartenders that were working in the industry, winemakers, Latinas that have a background like us, like people that look like us, like Latinas. So it started like that, and it continues to be, the social media continues to be a very important part of Latinas Wine Club. However, we have grown and expanded the business to be a technological platform, and that means we have a website that enables us to have membership based community. And with that, we have the wine school, and the wine school are in person and virtual events throughout the year where we really focus on educating, elevating, and empowering our knowledge of wine choices, and wine career opportunities. We discuss, of course, the wine bits and bolts, the wine regions, and also like some interesting topics like sustainability or any or other things. The wine school mainly runs 4 times a year, maybe some years more than others if we have more in-person events in New York City and in Austin, Texas. Hopefully, we can expand that into California in the next coming years and just keep growing our chapters so we can reach more Latinas in different cities across the US.
That's incredible. And thank you for sharing all of that. It sounds like there's so many things that people can get involved in at the Latinas Wine Club. And I'm curious to see, what kind of challenges you find most people face before, like what is their aha moment to get someone from maybe being curious about wine or not empowered to reaching out to the Latinas Wine Club? Do you notice any parallels or just cool stories that you've come across?
Samantha, I really think that the aha moment, it happens very often when we get into an event. You can follow us through social media and you're going to learn something, of course, because we really put, as I said, a lot of effort in sharing content that is valuable and that is going to help you and you're going to learn something from that. But that aha moment, you're really going to get it when you go into a virtual event or in a person event because it's that connection when you see people that look like you and that have questions that you have and that want to learn about wine and get enthusiastic about it when the aha moment and the connection happen. Really, I cannot say enough that I put a lot of work into the classes. I try to give as much value as I can. Being a Latina in the wine industry in New York, I have access to so many sommeliers that have helped me through my career. So, what I try to do is get that knowledge and spread it to my community and really give that value to people that are my amigas latinas that are not in New York that are based elsewhere. So I really focus very much into those details so they can get the best of the classes. And it's kind of like magic, when Latinas got together around wine and want to learn about what wine choices we have, not just like our typical Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. That don't take me wrong, I love those varietals, but you have to expand your palate and get to know different varietals. So magic happens when Latinas get together around wine. And I think many of my ambassadors and my partner in wine, Cynthia, my partner in Latinas Wine Club, can agree to that. Magic happens in those events.
I could hear the magic in your voice, honestly, and I'm sure our listeners can agree. Just the passion is exuding, and I love it. I mean, you're lighting up. They can't see you, but I see you, and you're lighting up talking about it. I almost want to experience it myself, and can imagine what barriers existed during the pandemic. You couldn't have those in-person interactions where the magic can really come through. And you spoke a little bit about this as well, but being in New York, you have so much more opportunity. It's just very concentrated there, and so why Austin, Texas? I'm curious.
Yes, of course. Well, Cynthia is based there in Latinas Wine Club. We call ourselves, with our privilege, Las Jefas. It means like the bosses. The bosses of Latinas Wine Club, like Las Jefas de Latinas Wine Club. And that's how we sign our newsletter that if you haven't joined yet, please do.
There
we
we
share
go.
our wine classes and what's coming in the newsletter. So Cynthia is based in Austin, Texas, and the chapter over there has grown over the years already, over the past 3 years. And people, even like we have people traveling from San Antonio to Austin to the events that we do because yeah, the Latina community, it's big there, and I see that shift that okay, we really want to learn about wine. We have a growing community there, and I may travel soon because I really want to get more involved with the amigas from Texas, the Lone Star State.
Absolutely, and Texas they have a wine scene out there, right? Am I not correct in that?
Yes, of course. They
Yeah.
have they have their own wine country that is growing and is spiking interest from many wine writers and just like consumers. We are interested in getting to know what they are doing over there. And my partner Cynthia again. She is really shining the light into Texas wine hill country, and we share that also in Latinas Wine Club. Of course, the international offering of wines is really expanding, and I see that when I work with different importers and distributors that they say, "Oh, you know what? We are new to Texas market." So many more choices are coming into the liquor and grocery stores. And I am so happy for that because it's the way that we're gonna really learn more about the wines of the world.
Absolutely. And as that growth happens, you see that as an even greater opportunity for Latinas to make their impact and have a greater stance in this industry.
Of course, of course, Amanda, it speaks a lot about, the power of the consumer and also the growing interest of Latinas in not just having the typical brands, but also like getting deeper into different wine regions. Moreover, and as you mentioned, to transition into an industry that perhaps was not welcoming Latinas or like diversity in general, but like right now, I think it's a very special moment. I'll say that it's changing and that doors are open, that finally the industry, the alcohol and beverage industry, is really realizing that we are one of the largest minority and growing groups in the US, and that we like good things, we like wine, we like to hang out, we like to party, familias are big.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
need, yeah, so we need that wine component that is essential, and the spirits, of course, that make our celebrations joyful, more joyful and enjoyable. So definitely a great opportunity over there.
Absolutely, and it's just reminded me of my own family. I'm Italian, and one of my closest friends is Latina, and we always talk about how, out of all the cultures, I'm not gonna lie, I mean, we both rank pretty high up there for knowing how to drink and have a good time, and so it's really fun to kind of hear that too, and hear that more people are recognizing that. And when you say the industry is changing and we're finally like having that door closed, what do you think has been one of the biggest changes that have enabled you to have your voice heard and have this just more diversity available?
I really think, Samantha, that the industry is changing as a whole. And I see that shift after the pandemic. And I hope that the change is steady, and it was not just a moment of leap, a moment of like, oh, let's try to make things different or shake it a little bit. I really hope that is a permanent change in the industry, because I see that I came to the wine studies before the pandemic. I was not in the wine industry. I came into the wine industry after the pandemic, and everyone was so welcoming, and really many retailers and distributors and importers reach out interested in collaborating with Latinas Wine Club and really educating this group of consumers that were looking for something new. However, that change during the pandemic was kind of like a lot of people reach out during that time. And then it's kind of like it makes a switch that we didn't receive as many requests anymore as we did during the pandemic. But our membership base, the business to consumer side, have been growing steady. So I see again that the industry is getting back into, oh, we really need to educate or and empower this group of consumers that want to know more about different choices. So it's kind of like it has kind of like coming and going, but I hope it becomes steady. You know what I mean? I hope that the industry finally realize that we are a group of consumers that are here to stay, and we really like to get educating about our wine or alcohol choices.
Absolutely. And I love how you're pointing out how this change is steady because you're so right. If it was an abrupt change, that isn't, I don't know, I just feel like it wouldn't last as long. There's got to be some rule out there that I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it also happened that other businesses or like community efforts happened during that time. And then right now, they just closed or like they didn't continue. There are so many challenges, but I hope that it really is steady.
Absolutely. And do you mind touching on some of those challenges that maybe still exist and change that kind of still needs to be done? Because I mean, change is the only constant. So we're only moving forward from here.
Yeah, of course. As the CEO of Latinas Wine Club, I have many calls with distributors or retailers interested in partnering with Latinas Wine Club. Our business to business model, we call it socios, that is the Spanish word for partners. And we are really select only those wineries or retailers or wine importers or distributors that align with our mission, and it's educating and empowering Latinas in wine or through wine. And for some of them, I have had calls that are like, well, the Latinas like wine, or and I'm like, well, yes, you know. So it's still challenging, kind of like on the strategy as a strategy officer, it's kind of like, well, we have to gather information and data of our community and present those hard data into our possible socios or partners. So it's always kind of like, oh, are you trying to build up a credibility as a business, as a Latina in the wine industry? Is still, nerve wracking. Even though I have had more than 10 big partners and big names in the industry during these past 3 years, there's always nerve breaking to present yourself as the leading change maker for like a community that really is looking for this, but like there's no more information. So gathering all the hard data and present it in a formal way, it's still, challenging.
Yeah, and you're handling it with grace. I mean, you said it yourself. You're the boss. What's the word again?
La jefa.
Yes. Okay. I've
Yes.
embarrassed myself enough already. I did it. Cool.
Yes, yes. People think that, oh, Martha, you do it so naturally. Well, no, I'm always like, nerve breaking inside, but leading the change takes that, takes courage. I have always challenged myself, and I have learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think that's something that I always tell to my Latinas in wine, like just do it, just try it, just speak about it. And I think that's also part of the way we empower and elevate. So many ambassadors and amigas can speak to you about it. I see the change, after we go into an online class, onto an in-person class, and we say we just have to do it, just do it, just like get out of your comfort zone, try different things and do it, is when the moment when they get inspired. And then it's very rewarding when I go to Instagram and I see many of the ambassadors trying different things and speaking about it. Even the aesthetic is not perfect.
Yeah.
It's just like they are just doing it and they are like, oh my god, I feel so happy and so empowered to really try different things and speak about it. So it's really, really rewarding. I think that's my best, how can I say, prize as being La Jefa.
That's the magic that you were
Yes.
referring to earlier. Like that is the magic. And there's nothing to lose. It's so I love how you touched on how people are doing it and that's what's important. Like we're taking action. We're not sitting here scared. And so with all this growth, all this magic that is bursting, what's next? Like how do you grow from here with the Latinas Wine Club? I know you mentioned expanding, but how do we get more people to experience this sensation, having their voice heard?
Yes, of course, Samantha. As I mentioned, we are trying to grow our chapters. So currently we have ambassadors in different cities. I'll say we focus on having ambassadors, different set of ambassadors every year that are located in the area where our largest concentration of Latinos. For instance, currently we have ambassadors in San Diego, LA, San Antonio, Austin, and Pasadena. In the past, we have had ambassadors in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Florida, also in Virginia. So those are the areas that I'll say I am focusing on next. And what does that mean? Well, empowering the ambassadors to create chapters that are able to provide in-person events. The virtual component, the virtual events, it's something that hold us together. And it's so refreshing and so important to have that national component, that we can get online and we can see the faces of the ambassadors and amigas that are located elsewhere in the US. But having that in person event and really leveraging the chapters into being a hub of Latinas in the local cities is what we are going to work next. Also, our wine club component, it has evolved through the years. Before we were sending bottles every two events. Right now we're kind of like suggesting which wine to select from a buying list we send every quarter. But I think that's a great opportunity for us to partner with a retailer or a distributor. We are currently in talks. So let's see what
Yeah.
happens. So there's a lot of opportunities for us. I feel that having a vision and the strategy and the support that we have, the response on Latinas Wine Club, it's really making me dream into growing this community and platform into the next level.
Absolutely. And I hope you take a moment too to like recognize that you are already at a next level. Like, did you ever expect that you would accomplish all of these things and be where you are today? It's one of my favorite questions to ask people is that like, did you ever expect your life to look like this?
Not at all. Not at all. When during the pandemic, I really wanted just to connect with Latinas. Then we got with the flow and we expanded into a technology platform and a community at large. And now, like, I am talking to you about like leveraging this small business into like a medium-sized business and really like expanding and leveraging the local chapters. So it's kind of like I get so much of what I give. It's really the response of the Latinas and the community asking for these type of programs, of wine education programs that really inspires me into into doing more. So no, I never imagined that in the course of 3 years, I was gonna become a wine educator for a community that is really, really looking for this type of information.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you really tapped into an unmet need, clearly. I mean, you ended up here. And I mean, there's a greater lesson about life there where you're just kind of you're seeing where it takes you instead of just trying to be so fixed on a goal. And it's brought you to such an amazing place, I guess. I mean, another question, I was gonna say for the crowd, it's for you. You are the crowd. But what was your aha moment? You alluded to this way back when we first started chatting, but it sounded like there were a series of aha moments for you during this pandemic. And can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yes, of course. And I'm going to touch again on the fact that I have always wanted to help the community. Since I was little, I had this kind of like thing in me that I wanted to help or advocate for community matters. However, the real aha moment for Latinas Wine Club was when I started getting into wine studies because I was going to master classes and I was the only Latina. And that happened like 3 times. And I was like, okay, like this is not normal. Like, how come I am the only Latina? Like, it's 2020 and I am the only Latina. Like, it's been a long, long time when, like, in different industries, there are, like, more diversity. So I was like, this is not good. Also, coming from the technology side, where, like, kind of like it was similar in the sense that I was the only Latina technology engineer for a while, but that changed pretty fast. The technology side of the industry kind of like welcome more diversity like early on. So being in the wine industry and being the only Latina in 2020 for me was like, this is not what's supposed to look like. Then I started my more formal education with the WSET and the Court Master of Sommeliers, and it was just like the only Latina, or like maybe two Latinas, and like many, many other, people from different backgrounds, but no Latinos. And I was like, I need to do something really. But I make my decision during the pandemic. I was like, I need to do something. I just cannot see amigas and Latinas losing their jobs or like getting disconnected from the hospitality industry. So I decided to make my dream a reality. And I founded Latinas Wine Club Inc. We incorporated in New York, and you know, I I knew that starting a small business during a pandemic was gonna be challenging, but I did it. I did it. I kind of like went with that thought that we spoke about. Like, let's go with the flow. Let's see where the ball rolls. Of course, with the strategy, always. I will always think, what am I doing this for? And then regrouping with the partners at the time and see why are we doing this? Like, where are we going? So yeah, that's how everything changed for Latinas Wine Club.
Every glass of wine tells a story. These stories reveal hidden histories, flavors, and passions, and sometimes they unravel our darkest desires. In Wine Enthusiast's newest podcast, Vinfamous, journalist Ashley Smith dissects the underbelly of the wine world. We hear from the people who know what it means when the products of love and care become the source of greed, arson, and even murder. Each episode takes listeners into the mysterious and historic world of winemaking and the crimes that have since become vinfamous. This podcast pairs well with wine lovers, history nerds, and crime junkies alike. So, grab a glass of your favorite wine and follow the podcast to join us as we delve into the twists and turns behind the all-time most shocking wine crimes. Follow Vinfamous on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and be sure to follow the show so you never miss a scandal. New episodes drop every other Wednesday.
That experience of being the only Latina in the room, I mean, can you share a little more about that? I feel like it cannot be easy. Like, what did that feel like?
Yes, Amanda. It's weird. It's very weird. Being in the wine tasting classes and the master classes, it's already intimidating despite what background you have, right? Like getting into a room and like being served like 18 glasses of wine and you have to spit out and behave in a certain way, it's already intimidating. So way more intimidating when you do not see anyone in the room that is like black, of people of color like you are, and there's no Latinos. It's like, oh, do I belong here or do I not? So all those thoughts are behind your mind while you are in person, like already, like kind of like in a stressful situation, or like us. a different situation, I'll say, that you are not accustomed, especially if you are a new one in the industry or like trying to get into formal wine studies. So all those thoughts were in the back of my head while I was like in many master classes, which I am so blessed and grateful to have the opportunity to have. As I say, New York is a great city for people like me that want to learn more about wine in a formal setting. There are many master classes here. So I remember that in one of the most recognized Italian restaurants here, they usually host Italian wine classes. And when I became, a wine blogger, I was in the early days, I was really obsessed with Italian wine. So I assisted and participated in many of the master classes. And it was exciting, but all those thoughts were in the back of my head. So that happened like three times. And then I was like, okay, no, like I'm gonna look for like a more formal school, to get a diploma where I could have showcase something if I really wanted work in the wine industry. So I joined the Wine and Spirits Education Trust through an affiliate, and I got my WSET level 2. And the classes, I was the only one Latina. And I was like, okay, no, this is not, this is like a pattern. Like I am the only one here. Like in different settings, like in master classes and in the WACT too. So that was kind of like, okay, I need to change that. I really want to see more people like me. Like why there are no sommeliers that are like people of color. And through Latinas Wine Club, I connected with Latina sommeliers and that I had the pleasure to get to know in person after the social media connection. And that kind of like helped me to see that, oh, we are there are some people like me somewhere in the world. There are. So being the hub that connect us everyone together, it was kind of like very important part of Latinas Wine Club in the early days. And I think up until this day, when I go to most recently, I have it very clear right now. Like a couple of months ago, I went to a French wine masterclass, and I saw some Latinas, and we are like, oh, we are the only ones in the room. Like, oh, I have a club and this and that, and they were like, oh, amazing, let's join. So that power of like identifying with your community and supporting each other. There's room for everyone. There's room for everyone in this industry, but really um, supporting each other and respecting each other's wine journey, I think is one of the most important things that we have done here in Latinas Wine Club.
So beautifully said. And I find that no matter where we're coming from, we can all relate in some sense to like not feeling like we belong somewhere. And that
Hmm.
is just such a human experience to want to belong. And what you're doing is not only inviting people, you were invited to these master classes, but that didn't translate to feeling welcomed. And there's such a big difference in that if hopefully I'm reading it right. And yeah, it's exciting to see where it goes. And there's always room at the table, which one thing I forgot to ask earlier, but you mentioned how kind of wine and spirits are just part of Latina culture. Has that played a role when you were growing up too? Because I know you mentioned also that wine was a rather recent endeavor for you, but has this played a role kind of all leading up to it?
Yes. Well, growing up in Mexico, there was never wine in our table, really. My parents enjoy beer or tequila, so growing up, I never had that opportunity. However, we were living close to one of the most recognized wine regions in Mexico, Coahuila, and we visited sometimes, and that were like kind of like great experiences for me that I didn't understood or give the value until I, grew up older and reconnected with some of my roots. When I got into wine, it was really in Spain. I study overseas in Spain, in Madrid, and I really reconnected with those with the heritage that I had from one side of my family. Moreover, the Spanish community, the people over there, they really enjoy wine like every day. And for me, it was like very different. In Mexico, if you have wine or alcohol every day, it's like, oh, you are like a drunk, you know? But in Spain, it's a different cultural thing. It's like you enjoy every day, you know, you don't have to be drunk to enjoy. You really have to appreciate the culture of wine, which was so different and so unique. And I was so impressed because I never thought that in a glass of wine there was so many histories and stories and geographical things, the soils, the terroir. And I was like, oh my God, I am in love with this glass of wine, you know? So
It's so much more
that
than a drink.
exactly, exactly. It was just like so magic, and I got very passionate about discovering what was behind the glass. And all those experience of being passionate about something, it was what led me into creating Wine Diva, where I share my personal wine journey, like, oh, I am discovering this wine and I am sharing that with you. Very, very different from Latinas Wine Club, where we want to empower a community and really empower each other. Latinas Wine Club, it's a it's a community project. I'll say yes, I am the founder, but you will rarely see me like on a picture in Latinas Wine Club because I really want to showcase like many faces, many experiences that are behind our Latinas. Even though we share that terminology, Latinas, it's still different, you know. I am from Mexico, but I grew up, in the border close to Texas, so I'm kind of like Texas Mexican, kind of like that. Completely different from a Latina that grew up in the Bronx, it's like completely different. However, we identify ourselves as Latinas, but we have so many different cultural differences, but we are united for that love of the family and really our Hispanic heritage.
Absolutely. It sounds like there's some potential out there beyond the States for Latinas. I don't know.
Yes, you know what, Samantha, we have been reached out for many Latinas that are located overseas, even in Latin America, in Mexico. They have been, you know, asking me many times to open a chapter there, or many Latinas that are like traveling or studying in Europe. They are like, oh, let's start a chapter here or in Puerto Rico. So yes, maybe one day we'll do that. Yes,
I guess
why
we'll
not?
see. You got a
Yes.
lot on your plate already, but you have so much
Exactly, exactly.
more. Beyond your plate, I'm going to raise the question. We ask this in every single episode. What's in your glass? Because we've heard everything about what's in your plate. What have you been drinking lately?
Well, a lot of cava, Samantha. Yes, this year I am the cava ambassador. So, of course, I have indulged myself and learned a lot. You will think that I knew everything about cava because, of course, I lived in Spain, not once, but twice. Like, I studied in Madrid, then I moved to Barcelona. I work there. So Barcelona is very close to the land of the Cava, Catalonia and all those regions. But you never stop learning. And that's what I love about wine. Really, Cava has made great changes in the past couple of years, really focusing on quality and also on the great profiles that they can offer. Cava is the DO, but there are many styles that come in within Cava. Now they are welcoming international varieties, besides the traditional trio that we call the Charelo, Macabeo, and Parellada. And I'm getting very geek here about the
I love
grapes.
it.
But now they are blending it with Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, so that gives access to create different flavor profiles in within Cava. So yes, many cavas, cava rosé, cavas with just the trio, cava with the international variety. In love with cava these days.
Well, I guess as we start to wrap up here, I have one more final question, then leave the floor to you to say anything else you want to share. But what kind of advice would you give to a Latina, or really anyone who's starting their wine journey, or something that you wish you knew before you started?
To learn about wine, you just really have to drink wine. Definitely don't be scared to try different things. I'll say the best advice that I have received and that I want to give is make a relationship with your local liquor store. Definitely get out there and ask them, oh, I like this flavor profile. I am looking for this, and create that relationship. The wine people that are in retail, they are often very knowledgeable, and if not, they will look for the information. Believe me, ask questions of what you are trying to get into, or what are you gonna pair the wine with, or what is this the celebration wine for. Definitely create that relationship. I wish I could have known that before, because I was struggling with myself, like looking in Google in the store, until I became friend with my wine sales people in the retail store, and they were like recommending hidden gems like champagne, great champagne under 50 and this and that, and I was like, oh my god, why I didn't ask before. Just ask the questions. Ask the questions.
There are no dumb questions. Cheers to
Exactly.
that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Expression of gratitude to Martha. Is there anything else that you want to share? Just open the floor. Any final words? Where can we find you? If you want to drop any socials, anything.
Yes, of course. Well, as I mentioned, you can find me and discover my personal wine journey, where I also share wine pairings and wine recommendations at Wine Diva A at the end. So double A at the end. Wine Diva A on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me like that. And then for Latinas Wine Club, you find us on Facebook and Instagram as Latinas Wine Club, and we are there sharing great content, great wine educational content for you about different wine regions, wine varietals, and of course, all the information on our upcoming events are there, and also in our newsletter that is located in the link on bio. So please join us, instagram.com/Latinas Wine Club.
Yes, thank you for sharing all that. Please, if y'all are listening, that sounds cool. Check it out. Martha, expression of gratitude. Once again, it's been an absolute honor speaking with you today.
Thank you very much, Samantha. I appreciate everything what you have done, and to wine enthusiasts for shining the light in those advocates that are really trying to make the change in the wine industry.
Wine brings people together regardless of their differences, but representation matters. When you see people who look like you, it can make something that's been intimidating even less so. The more diversity in the industry, the more interesting the wine. What are your thoughts? If you like today's episode, we'd love to read your reviews and hear what you think. You can email us your comments and questions at podcast@wineenthusiast.net. And hey, why not tell your wine-loving friends to check us out too? Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. You can also go to wineenthusiast.com/podcast for more episodes and transcripts. I'm JC Tops. Thanks for listening.